cool if I'm like drinking water and stuff on it?
Yeah, heck yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Cool.
Hello, mobility athletes. We are back today to share with you something pretty incredible called the Calendar Club Challenge. And also, I am going to share with you for the first time completing this and the amazing person that I found along the way, Rob. Rob joined the Jaguar volleyball team for South Alabama as an assistant coach in January of 2019, but he is no amateur in the volleyball world. He spent the 2015-2016 season as a graduate assistant for the University of Essex in England, where he helped the squad to a 12-0 record while making the move from Division I to the Premier League. He also worked on his Master's of Science in Organized Crime, Terrorism, and Security, and played for the semi-professional Trending Volleyball Club, earning 2 league MVP awards and helping the squad to a 14-4 record. So he is no amateur when it comes to winning mindset, but he decided to take on the Calendar Club Challenge too, and we found each other along the way, and I am pumped to share our journey. Welcome, Rob.
What's going on?
Just living the dream today. I know that we both were talking before we got on here that we're finally feeling, for the most part, recovered. And why don't you tell us a little bit about, most people don't even know, at least that I found along the way, they don't even know what the Calendar Club Challenge is. So why don't you explain to us what it is, and then let's talk through really what brought you to do this challenge.
For sure. So I think the easiest way to describe this feat is every day you run a mile and then you add one more. I used to describe it as you run whatever the date correlates to the miles, and like most of the people had no idea what I was talking about. And so I like, as I was running in circles out there, I kind of figured out how to dumb it down to be like, yeah, on the 1st of May, you run 1 mile, and then every day after that, you add one more. So yeah, May 31st was 31 miles and a lot of miles in between. So that's pretty cool.
Yes. And so I know for me, what took me to do this challenge was actually that I've been working in the last year on this idea of don't run towards praise and don't run away from criticism. So I wanted to challenge myself to see if I just made a promise to myself, do I think that I'm enough to uphold that promise to myself for a time commitment, a physical commitment, also something that half the people that I talked to thought was freaking crazy, and all really without applause. For me, that's what took me on my journey, and yours was very different. So tell me about what started you wanting to do the Calendar Club Challenge and what it kind of meant to you to do that.
For sure. So I guess I'll start back in the beginning. So I saw Jesse Itzler do this in February on Instagram, and I followed his journey. I was like, wow, that's insane. That would be kind of cool to do. And at the time, so I'm a volleyball coach, and at the time I was full-time. This was before the pandemic happened. And, I was working full-time as a coach does. Recruiting season was just about to hit. And then halfway through February, I got shipped overseas. I went to Istanbul, Athens, and Thessaloniki to go recruiting. And so I kind of went over into Europe, like right when coronavirus was hitting Europe. So it was like really real over there. And then I got back here and I got put on quarantine on March 5th. I never like came in contact with it or anything. But so when I got back here, that's when everything broke in the United States and we kind of shut down. So, March happened and I figured out my routine working from home. And I'm not going to lie, I felt like I was in Groundhog Day. You wake up, you work, you walk around the house. I'll be honest, I wasn't really working out. I went and bought a pull-up bar and I was like doing pull-ups, but I wasn't really working out. I would go run 2 miles here and there. But yeah, so that was March. And then in April, I saw Colin O'Brady do this and I followed him again. I was like, oh, wow, like that's kind of cool. Like that's insane. But because when you really think about having no rest and no recovery, I think a lot of people miss that. And once you're in the thick of it, like it's real. So yeah, I followed Colin's journey and really a lot closer than I did Jesse's. And he was getting people on, and he put out a lot of great content. And so halfway through April, I lost my grandma. She passed away from dementia. We knew it was coming. She was in a care facility. She was on hospice, and we knew it was going to happen sometime this year. So we were prepared. Like, I was prepared for it. My family was prepared for it. But so she passed away on a Saturday in April, and my aunt and her husband, Uncle Mitch, I call him Uncle Mitch. They went to go say goodbye, and her care facility was there were I think there were 50 people there, and 22 people had tested positive for COVID-19.
Wow.
So they went to say goodbye, and on Monday, so she passed away on Saturday. On Monday, I got a call from my mom saying that Uncle Mitch had tested positive for COVID-19. It was in the ICU. He was struggling to breathe. So that kind of came out of the blue. And then Tuesday, they said, I got another phone call saying they put him on a ventilator and he was getting better. And then Wednesday, I got a call in the morning, first thing when I woke up in the morning, said he was gone. So that rocked me. And I didn't necessarily know how to grieve. And I was kind of sitting here spinning my wheels. I'll be like, when death happens, it's nice to be around your family. And we couldn't do that for my grandma and then my uncle. And I had just talked to Uncle Mitch right before I went overseas. He was a huge Nebraska fan. We talked about Nebraska football, Nebraska volleyball. And so yeah, that was a huge loss in my life. And so I kind of was looking for something as an outlet, because I called all my family members, and but you can only get so much connection and only get so much dealing with grief out of that. So I don't know, at some point I was on a run actually. And I was like, what if I went for this calendar club thing? I had nothing going on in May. What if I actually went for it? And I posted on social media. Did you watch the whole video that I sent you that I put together?
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I called a couple people, a couple of my close friends. One of my friends is a triathlete. She swam at LSU, and then she was at the university I was at before, and she was a triathlete and over there. And so I asked her, I was like, hey, I'm thinking about this. You got any tips? And she was like, first of all, don't do it. I was like, all right, fair enough. I'm going to do this. So I'm looking for some advice. It's help me. Don't tell me I can't do this. Help me through it. And she goes, all right, well, how much have you trained for it? And I was like, well, I think last week I ran 10 miles over the course of 7 days. And she was like, all right, well, if you're going to do this, you have to have some conversations with yourself. You have to go into it understanding that you're trying to survive. You're not necessarily trying to compete in this, because I hadn't trained for it at all. I went couch to 5-time ultramarathon runner in a row in 31 days. When I joke and talk about it, it's literally what I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's something. So she gave me, shout out Hannah. She gave me some of the best advice that anyone's given me about this challenge was, she said, listen to your body. Your body will tell you when you can walk. Your body will tell you when you can run. You have to listen to your body if you even want a chance at making it through this. So I was like, okay. And then that next day, I think that was the 28th of April. The next day I went out and I ran 5 or 6 miles or something like that in volleyball shoes. And I came back and my my feet hurt like nothing else, but I was running in volleyball shoes. And so I called one of my athletic trainer friends here at South and was like, hey, why did my feet go numb? And he asked me what type of shoes I was running in. And so I told him, well, you're the idiot. So you're going to be able to put 5 miles of you're going to be cutting them out distances. So I went to research. I called my local Fleet Feet store and I went in there. The Marjorie at Fleet Feet, she put me up. I was like, hey, I found an orange pair online in your inventory that looked pretty cute. I'm interested in those. And then she asked me, what do you plan on doing with them? How many miles are you gonna put in the month of May? 500. And she kind of laughed at me and was like, excuse me? My husband trained for 100 milers to put that type of mileage in a month. And again, I was like, all right, yeah, but I need a pair of shoes. It's cool, doubt me, but I'm gonna do it. But I just need some help along the way. And so she clued me into a good pair of shoes. I picked them up. and she told me, hey, come on through. Like she said, come on back some like throughout the month. I want to keep up with your progress because this is insane and I've never heard of this before, and I'm really interested to see how you hold up. So yeah, and then May 1st hit and I started going.
That's awesome. I mean, number one, it's just so crazy how like I met same people, Jesse Itzler, and then, you know, the man of the impossibles, hiking across the Antarctica. And so that was like my journey to find the Calendar Club Challenge too. And it's so funny because I was telling you this, I did my first mile. I made my decision May 1st, like very last minute, like 10:45 at night. I'm like, all right. I literally put on my Sperry's because it was the only pair of shoes I could find and be like quiet in my house because my family is all asleep. And I walked up and down my driveway. It's 0.1 down and 0.1 back until I got a mile. And then I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing this.
Yeah. And I had 3 people text me and reach out to me on May 1st because I posted it on Twitter. So I posted it on Twitter originally to keep myself accountable because I knew my Twitter is my work, my living resume, you know, my work social media. And so I knew if I posted it on Twitter that would keep me accountable because, you know, there's future bosses out there that are going to be able to look back on that. And, you know, when I say I'm going to do something, like I'm going to do it.
Yep.
So I posted on Twitter, and then a guy I work with, he messaged me and said, I'm gonna do this with you. And I kind of like chuckled to myself because it's like, this guy hasn't run in, I don't know, I couldn't tell you last time he probably run. And he tapped out, I think on day 3 because he thought you run 1 mile every single day. And I was like, I called him up on day 3. I was like, how'd the 3 miler go today? And he was like, excuse me? I thought it was 1 mile. I was like, no, every day you do a plus 1 more. And he was like, not a chance, bud. I'm out. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it 1 mile a day. And he stuck with it, and he did 1 mile for every single day for the month of May, I'm pretty sure. So, like, that's awesome.
That's awesome, too.
There. And then I had another buddy of mine who he texted me on May 1st and said, just ran a 6:30 mile. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, why'd you do that? Why you text me about it? He goes, I'm doing the Calendar Club with you, and every mile that I run, I'm going to donate $1 to charity. And I was like, that's awesome. Number 1, that's awesome. Number 2, why are you sprinting at a 6:30 pace when this is a literal marathon, not a sprint? I think my first mile, I walked half of it, and I got done at like it took me 15 minutes or 16 minutes to do my mile. I took my time. And so he ended up dropping out, I think, on the 8th because he was just so messed up. He messed his body up, and it's not a sustainable pace. And he was like every day, but like up until he dropped out, he was like, yeah, I cruised all 6 miles at an 8:30 pace. And I'm just like, there's no way that's sustainable, bro. So yeah. And then I had a really good friend of mine. She said that she was going to do up to day 10, and then she was going to do 10 mile, or she was going to do sprints after, like a sprint for every mile after that. And she told me that the conversation she had with herself was she had to run everything, and she wasn't going to walk because, you know, she's a competitive triathlete. And, you know, I went to her and I learned a lot of stuff from her about how to get my body through this, but she didn't give herself the option to walk. And so on day 10, she said that she hurt herself and she had to drop out. So it was cool on May 1st that like people were like, I'm going to do it with you. But then everybody kind of dropped out because like, that's why I think your story is amazing, because you just like said, screw it, I'm going to do it on the 1st of May. Like, I kind of had eyes on this since February, and I did a little bit of research. I didn't do near enough, like looking back, but like if I could do it again, I would do it completely different so I don't feel like I got hit by a truck all the time. But yeah, it was like I respect that you just put your Sperry's on and did it. I respect that so much. I want
Sperry to sponsor me for this thing.
Right? I need Pedialyte to sponsor me. I spent like $250 on Pedialyte this past month.
Yeah, I think that it's very interesting. You know, you're talking about some of the logistical things, and I think that was something I really underestimated. I think one of the things that you talked about that I think really shows up in life is this idea that if you sprint, too much in the beginning when it's short and it's fun, you will never make the long journey. And that is a
Yeah,
huge, huge, huge thing that I learned. But then there's this other perspective too of, if you are moving forward, then you're doing good things. And so it's also rewarding yourself for just moving forward, no matter what that pace is. And I found that that really correlates for me in business and other parts of my athletic life. Is it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a 6-minute mile. It doesn't have to be an 8-minute mile. You just
for
got to
sure.
get it done every freaking day. Just do it. And man, was that important for me.
For sure. Just just keep showing up. That's what I told myself. Keep showing up and keep pushing the rock. I definitely took Pazik's his mantra, push the rock, and I ran with it. And so I had pushed the rock and I had keep showing up. And that just, there were days I had more bad days than I had good days. I forgot that I think it was on day 22. I packed the night before for 15 miles because I was going to do 15 miles in the morning and then, knock the rest out in the afternoon. And then I got out there and on top of that, I left my lucky hat that I've been wearing and I left my like UV sun shirt that like protected me from getting obliterated by the sun. I left that at the house. So I'm out there I forgot half of my stuff. I only packed my nutrition for 15 miles. And then I got this great idea of like, let's go kill 22 in a row. Like, not stop. Let's knock it all out this morning. And I got to mile 15 and then I realized and then I ran out of water. I ran out of all my nutrition stuff. I didn't have food. And I've got, however many more miles, that's 7 more miles to go on top of that. So, it was like, I definitely had that little man on my shoulder that was, go ahead and quit, buddy. Like, you don't have to do this. There's nobody holding a gun to your head. And I had so many of those mental battles this past month of like, you don't have to do this. It's go ahead and quit.
Yep.
It's okay to stop. You can do it later. And I can honestly say that I beat all of those. And I pushed through that day 22. I pushed through it and I finished the rest of those miles out. The sprinklers turned on at the quote unquote track that I was at. And so I like drank a little bit of sprinkler water and just kind of like sucked it up that I didn't have like nutrition stuff, which definitely bit me in the butt down like the next day and the day after that, because doing the calendar club, it's not about today. It's not about today. It's about tomorrow. And it's about a week from today. It's about making sure that what you're doing right now is setting yourself up to like survive. At least for me, was like to survive and be able to walk a week from now when you have double the miles, triple the miles and stuff like that. So it was just keep showing up. And that's something that I think I've been pretty good at in life, with like you were talking about in business and how this translates outside of just running around in circles. Because I was on a track, a 0.6 mile like concrete loop around the intramural fields at South Alabama, and I just went. I think I probably put 500 miles on the track, going in circles. And then I went to Pensacola because I have some friends down there that helped me run and had some really cool experiences down there. But yeah, I just keep showing up. That's all you gotta do. Even when you show up when you don't want to. That's the biggest thing. Like, I woke up. It wasn't until the last like week that I woke up like, oh, I'm so excited. Like I woke up, it's like, yeah, like I want to do this, and you can kind of see how like on the video that I sent you, you can kind of see my mentality shift as the days go on. But I woke up a lot of times at 4 a.m. and, I wake up and I go outside and I was like, it's raining right now. And the forecast says it's going to rain all day. And like down here in Alabama, there's a hurricane that just missed us. And so like I'd have to go out and I have 4 hours in the rain, and nobody wants to do that. And I didn't want to do it, but I still got out there. I still drove out there. I still did it. I still showed up and I still did it. And I figured out how to, even in times that it sucked, that it really sucked, I figured out how to acknowledge those thoughts because they're there, and then shift my perspective from like, I have to do this to I get to do this, and figuring out how to, and a lot of the way that I did that was like through gratitude, honestly, gratitude and appreciation. Because like saw another story when I was out there. that I think it was day 18, where for 4.5 hours it just pissed on me. It was pouring. It was like running through a sprinkler for 4 hours. And I got out there, and I didn't have like the blister stuff for my feet at the time. And okay, so that was day 11, because that's the day I got sponsored. But I put in 4 hours out there, and I got to mile. I don't even know what mile it was, but all of a sudden I can feel the blisters forming on my feet, and it's just like, oh, this is terrible. I'm soaking wet. My feet hurt. I have so much further to go, and I just found myself spiraling down this mental hole. And then I was like, all right, if I keep going down this way, this is like, I'm not going to survive. I'm not going to make it. How do I get myself out of this funk? And I was like, all right, what am I grateful for right now at 5:30 in the morning when it's just raining super hard? I was like, well, the rain, it could be cold. It could be cold rain, and it could be snowing. And if it was snowing, like, that would suck. Like, that would really suck. And so I was like, I can literally run with my shirt off if I want to right now. And so when I got back around the loop to my car, I took my shirt off and started kept running in circles. And I found myself laughing. I was laughing at myself for the fact that, I found a way to shift my perspective into the positive. And now I was enjoying myself, even though like the blisters kept coming and it kept getting worse. But I found myself in a different mindset to where I could go. So that was I think that's one thing that I've been pretty good about all my life, but it really kind of magnified itself in this past month.
It's interesting because, again, I think one of my favorite things about this is anyone that wants to do this challenge, I can really speak to this one right now because this is probably the biggest and the hardest thing that I've ever done challenge-wise. And you have a completely different past than me. You got something completely different from it. Because for me, I suffered the last week. And suffering is voluntary, guys. Suffering is freaking voluntary. And I suffered, especially the last 4 days. And I've learned a lot about myself over the last year. So I'm a very quick start. And I have very poor follow through. So on a Colby assessment, that's kind of what I am. And that's always, I've noticed that about myself, that it's very hard for me to get all the way to the finish line and maintain that momentum. Like most people are like, when I get close to the finish line, I get more excited. No, for me, the closer I get, the more likely I am to kind of start cutting things off or shorting myself out or not pushing myself as hard. And so one of my challenges here was, okay, Nicole, like, how can you get through this every day? And I mean, there were days, no one wants to talk about this side of themselves, but I've always been very open. I didn't start out this way. Like, I was a cheater. Like, I was weak. I mean, I would go out on the cross country course, and I was a good runner in high school. We went to state 4 years. I was on varsity for my freshman year, but I did the bare freaking minimum to be there. And I always was, oh, my IT bands hurt. Oh, I was really dehydrated today. B freaking S, BS. Like, it was all BS. I made it up in my head, and I did that for my whole life. Things that came easy to me were easy. Things that got hard got full of freaking excuses. And this time it was like, I would walk in the house and have 2 miles left, and I'd be like, turn freaking around. Like, I had to consciously say that to myself, like, go finish, because no one knows. No one cares. And it was hard, but I think that is something that I'm going to take forward is, okay, Nicole, if you finished 5 ultra marathons back to back to back to back without cheating yourself, then like, you can also like stay up 30 more minutes and finish the emails that you promised to send out, and not make excuses and be honest about that. And I just think I really took a lot away from it about who am I? That's the question I kept asking myself. Was, you kind of came from gratitude, and I came from, who am I? Who is the person that's going to finish this? What does this define about me? And I would go through those characteristics of like, if I quit right now, what does that say about me? Am I that person that quits? Because if I am, I better be ready to stand up and say, hey guys, I quit. This is why I quit. This is who I am as a person. And that did not feel good.
Yeah, so I can definitely relate. So when I look back at my purpose of my purpose behind doing the calendar club, so number one, there was definitely a grieving process because I thought about my grandma and my uncle a lot out there. Number two, so I'm a coach, and I asked my team to do really hard things for a really long time, and I think the word clout. I think there's clout in being able to do something really hard to talk to them about, and not to say like, hey, I did this. I did it for them to say, hey guys, I suffered through this. This is something that's different, but I hit the same roadblocks that you guys did of like, I don't want to get up at 4 a.m. to go into practice. I didn't want to get up to go run when it was pissing down on me, but I did. And here's how I got through that. And here's my tools that helped me. Hopefully they can help you. So that was a big reason that I discovered why I did that. Kind of a superficial reason that started me was people told me I couldn't do it. And when I started working with Tyler, that's when he kind of called me out on that and was like, that's such BS. Like that's such a superficial, easy thing to pull on, is saying that, somebody told you couldn't do it. And so I've kind of like, that was definitely there, but initially that was one of the first things I would tell people when they asked me, like, why did I do this? I would tell them because people told me I couldn't, but like now in retrospect, I could care less what people think. And then the last thing, like going back to like what type of person you are. So I went to school at Loyola Chicago. I played volleyball there, and the team, like we won 2 national championships. We went back to back. We beat Stanford my junior year and then Lewis my senior year. And so we went to the top of the mountain and we danced on the top of the mountain 2 years in a row. And I wasn't a starter. I sat the bench basically my entire career. I had opportunities, but like to become a starter, when I look back at my path, I definitely had opportunities where I didn't take them and I felt sorry for myself. And, there were moments in my college career that were pretty dark where, I was like, the gym that I was in was the most elite of the elite. And the guys who came in behind me were like, they are now Olympians, and I'm not an Olympian caliber volleyball player. And so like, I had to come to terms with that. And there's always been a little part of me that's been like, there's nothing, like, I don't take anything away from myself. Like I was part of a team, and there's different roles on that come with being on a team. And I embraced my roles, and I was successful, even though my role was like the most minuscule role, but like it still was important. But there are times I sit there and I look at myself and I'm just like, did you really earn that? Like, you're like, could you do that? Could you do something of that magnitude by yourself? And so that was, for me, I bid onto that a lot when I was out there running in circles, was like, Loyola made me into this guy. And can I use that to go and accomplish something else that's, deemed impossible? Winning a national championship is pretty impossible. And I did it twice with the team. And running 500 miles seems impossible, but I did it and then some. Like, I'll never know how many miles I ran because of the mishaps with my phone and GPS and stuff like that, but that's a whole nother story. So yeah, that was a big one. And Tyler helped me, he helped me figure that out. And so I, like, when times got tough, I didn't think about, the people who told me I couldn't do it. I thought about, my grandma, my uncle, and myself, and like, what am I trying to prove to myself? And so, yeah, I can definitely relate to, am I going to stand up and say, hey, like, I'm a quitter? Like, every time, because I had that all the time. There was one time I was out there and I had a friend come down, and I got that bike I told you about earlier that I tried to do the sprint try on a couple of days ago. That was in the back of my car when I went out there. And so it was just sitting in my car. And again, it was raining, and I was trying to get 16 miles that day. I don't even remember what day of the month it was, but for the first 5 miles, every time I came around the loop, I could just see the handlebars and see the back tire in my car. It was just like, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like the little devil on the shoulder was like, just take the bike out, and every other lap you can just get on the bike and you can just do one lap on the bike. and then you can run a lap, and then you can bike a lap, and no one's out here, and no one would know. No one would know except for you. And every time I got close to the car, I would just like keep going. I would just like run past it, and then I go back around. And for the first 5 miles, like it was a gnarly battle with myself. And then I finally was just like, no, I'm not going to cheat this. I have to do this for myself. I told myself when I started this challenge, I had to get across the finish line on my own 2 feet, whether that's running, walking, crawling, rolling, cartwheeling, I'll figure it out. But yeah, it was pretty cool to sit there, and I definitely had those demons and those battles of, I don't want to do this. And I thought about every single way I could possibly cheat out there. There's a guy who came out on campus who had a golf cart. He would take the trash out on the little loop I was at. And I thought about, like, I could probably sweet talk this guy into like hit me a couple laps on the golf cart, or just, yeah, I thought of every single way I could cheat. And every time I did, I was like, no, like, you have to do this by yourself. You have to walk. You have to do it on your own 2 feet. So that was a pretty cool, it was a growing experience, but like, I knew that I was that type of person, or at least I thought I knew I was that type of person. And now, like, I know that I'm that type of person. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I want people to really hear what we're saying, because I think true champions, whether it's this and anything beyond, is this idea that sorry, my little one's in here. So true champions, all it means is that you show up consistently every day. It's not that you don't face challenges. It's that you face challenges with the tenacity to know that, do I want to cheat? Yes. Do I want to quit early today? Yes. Do I want to do 1 more mile tomorrow? No. But you do it freaking anyway. Yeah. And that's what makes true champions. I think so many people, and Matt Fitzgerald has a great book called How Bad Do You Want It? And he talks about this. And there's been studies that have shown that originally they thought elite athletes didn't feel pain the way that regular people do. So what they did is that they hooked up like a blood pressure cuff on people's arms and had them squeeze a ball. Mm-hmm. And then they would tell the people to record once it starts to hurt, and then keep going until you want to stop. People that had never done fitness hit around, so they said there was pain around 55 squeezes, and they stopped at around 60, 65. And then people that had been in fitness for a while made it to about 100. Elite athletes still picked the same spot. The 55 point started to hurt, and they made it to over 200 squeezes. Like, wow. They're just in there to endure, and they say, okay, can I go 1 more? Can I go 1 more? Can I go 1 more? And I think that was a big part of this challenge was, can I go 1 more for myself? And if the answer to that was yes, that's pretty freaking powerful. I don't know.
It was, what I found myself doing a lot, and now in retrospect, looking back at it, was I would set myself goals on the track. And I now call it Sisyphus' cyclone.
Oh, cool.
Rock comes from Sisyphus, and like cyclone, Sisyphus. So, but yeah, when I was out there, I would tell myself, so the goal of the morning or whatever day it was to get, say, 15 miles. Let's crank out 15 miles. And then I would get there, and I would be like, all right, like, can you do 1 more mile? Like, let's do 1 more mile. And every time I would set a goal, I would always go +1 on top, or at least +1 on top of it. A lot of times I would, +5, +7 on top of it. But I would get to this point where, I would hit my goal, and then I knew I had more left in the tank, and I was like, let's do another one. Let's do another one. So, and that was probably the hardest thing for me outside of nutrition and recovery. That was the hardest thing for me, was kind of reeling that in. What's up, buddy? Was reeling that in, because once I got past around I don't know how it was for you, but around 15, 16 miles, like, that's when a switch flipped with me, and it was like, yo, we've gone farther than we have to go. Let's flip the switch, empty the tank, shift it into 5th gear, and let's go. Let's finish it. And I had to learn to kind of throttle back on that emotion, because if I just emptied the tank, I probably would have hurt myself. And I did. I think I'm going to see one of our athletic trainers today, and
Good.
I think I strained my right adductor, because it's like it's on the inside of my thigh, and I still like can't run. But like there were a couple times that I didn't listen. I was like, let's do it. And I just kind of, I called it like mongrelling out. I just like mongreled out and just went for it. And then, yeah, I hate the repercussions of that, and I definitely hurt from it. But that was one of the gnarliest battles for me, was once you open that mental door of, hey, there's another level to this, I had to pause in that doorway for a second, because tomorrow I got to do +1 and +1 and +1. But now I know how to get to that spot. And now once I have recovery and I'm not, 500 miles into it and I have another 75 to go and I'm not going to hurt myself, like now I know how to get to that spot. And it's pretty cool. Like I can get there. Honestly, I can get there like that now, which is I never knew I had that in me.
Tell me about working. So you worked with Tyler Pasick of Pasick Performance Group, and it sounds like he really helped solidify some of this stuff, because you've really got a lot of this pathway figured out about your emotions that you were feeling and dialing in on those and feeling them and understanding where they were coming from. What role did he play? Will you work with a high performance coach in the future? What benefits do you think you can see from that? Because it's a very interesting perspective.
Yeah. So, I owe a lot of me getting through this challenge to Tyler, because if he hadn't helped me figure out my mental landscape, then once it got hard, like once we got into the impossible of the UltraMarathons back to back to back to back to back, I don't think I would have made it through. And so I've been following Tyler on social media for 3 years, I think. At my previous institution, one of his best friends, Jimmy Holbrook, he was there working there. He was a strength coach there, and Jimmy kind of put me in touch with Tyler's content. And honestly, I agree with. I haven't seen a post from Tyler that I'm not just like hit the nail on the head right there. Totally agree with that. I've been following Tyler for a while, and I've shown my student athletes that I coach content and help them. And I got sponsored on the 11th. I sponsored by Fleet Feet. And then I was sitting there thinking, as I got deeper into it, I was thinking, how can I like help myself? Because I need help on this. And that's one thing I learned. Well, before this, I was asking for help. I was like, I can just figure it out. Like, I don't need help. And then I learned through this challenge, like, I need help. And so I reached out to Tyler on Instagram and like, hey, I know Jimmy. I love your content. Would you be interested in sponsoring me? He had no idea I like wanted money from him or something like that. Which like, no, that's not what I want. Like, I want you to talk to me. And I realized that like your job is talking to people, and I want you to like just talk to me to help me, set my mind right. And so we had a phone conversation, and I think we saw things from a very similar perspective, and I think he saw my drive, and I don't know. You had to ask him on why he decided to do it, like partner with. But he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm in." So we started scheduling in the morning. So I was running at the time I jumped on with him. When he jumped on board, I had it broken up into 2 days, and so we scheduled like a time to call in the morning and time to call in the afternoon while I was on the runs. And so honestly, just he would ask me questions, and it was me talking more than it was him talking, but he would pose a question, and then I would respond, and then he would call me out on the BS of my answer, and he would make me dig deeper. Like when we talked about my ethos, I guess you would say, and the kind of the character values that I'm building my life upon. And I would so he was like, I need between 3 to 5 words that define you, and you need to have those words, and you need to have the definitions of how you define those words. And that was at like 7 o'clock at night. I had 3 more miles. He goes, I want that by midnight. And I was like, whoa, I'm back in high school, like with a teacher, like having homework to do. But I was all about it. And so I sat there and I worked on them, and I sent him the definitions. And then the next day we called and we talked about them. And, granted, I was like discombobulated from running. I I didn't have the time to like really sit there and think about the definition, but he called me out on some of the definitions being shallow, and we dove deeper into them, and I was able to find a lot more meaning. So like for instance, discipline is one of the core values that I would say pillars I base my life on. Is discipline. And I initially defined it as the ability to do something over and over again. At 10 o'clock at night, I can come up with around like 22 miles. And so he was like, yeah, that's not good enough. Like there's something missing. And so we started talking about it, and I came up with, to me, the definition of discipline is the ability to uphold the standard. And what is that standard? Like the standard changes with everything you do. Like the standard of discipline for the calendar club is really gnarly, but then like what's the standard of discipline in my life, with work, with relationships, with all this other stuff? And so there's different standards to everything that in life. And so discipline is the ability to discipline is the ability to uphold whatever the standards are. So yeah, he talked to me, and so sometimes we talked about mental performance stuff, and then sometimes we just shot the shit, and we just like joked around. And he had run a 100-mile race before, and I think he's done quite a few marathons, so he understood what I was going through when I said, man, I can't feel my feet. It takes 4 miles for my feet to go numb, and then I don't feel anything. He could relate to that. And I asked him what happened. So to that point with his pain, I was like, what happens after pain? Because there's the next step. What happens after pain? And then he's like, then after pain, it's just the goal. It's just you and the goal to finish, and that's it. There's nothing else in your head. And he had been there before, which is another reason I wanted to have him on board, was because he had literally been in my shoes and he had done this before. So yeah, I owe a lot of why I was able to get 550. I say 550 plus, because unofficially I think officially I'm at 503 based on the mileage, but I think I'm like 550 plus. But yeah, he's awesome. Tyler Pazik Performance Group. If we had the budget and my head coach is on board, like I'm very hopeful that we can get him to become a part of the team, because everything that he taught me, I want him to have a direct correlation and a direct relationship with the girls that I coach. And yeah, like this guy is incredible. If you can work with him. Like he is incredible.
Yes, I love it. So just to kind of finish up, I know, so you're thinking about a couple other challenges. So let's go through, what other challenges are you thinking of? And then what pieces of advice do you have for someone that's wanting to do this?
Other challenges. So first and foremost, I have to recover. My first next step is making sure that I get my body to 100%, because I went couch to ultramarathon runner without any training. And like in hindsight, that was dumb. But so I'm focusing on recovering right now, and then the plan is an Ironman, to complete an Ironman.
Dude, that's awesome.
On the way, like I tried to do a sprint triathlon 2 days ago, but when I got to the run part, my body was like, not happening. So like, again, I got to go back to the recovery part. But so yeah, I think an Ironman's next up someday, and that'll probably take a year, maybe a year and a half to train for, depending on like my schedule. And then I actually I was on a phone call yesterday with a rep from 29. And
wait, who'd you talk to?
Brad.
Okay.
I think his name is Brad. He's based out of Atlanta. I'm butchering it. I can't remember his name, but yeah, we talked about it for an hour, and it's expensive. Like right now, the biggest part for me is the cost, because it's like $4,200 just like to get as the entrance fee, and then on top of that, you got to get there and everything. So like right now, I can't afford that, not a chance. But I'm hopeful that just because I can't afford it doesn't mean that there's not another way to do it. And how did I get through Calendar Club? I got sponsored, and so I bet you I could, based on what I've done, I bet you I could pull together some sponsors that would help me get there. So yeah, I think 29,029 is a goal to Everest. So
Yes. Well, it got
yeah,
canceled. So we're next weekend. So the virtual event's happening because it was supposed to be in Sun Valley doing 29,029. And so it got canceled. So we're doing a virtual event. So we're gonna you have to be hiking for 20 of 36 hours. So you got to track. So that's what next weekend is. And then so we're still deciding whether we're gonna go to North Carolina or Tennessee to get our 20 hours. And then next year, so it rolled over to the next year. So then next year we'll be in my two events is 29,029, and then I'm crewing a Race Across America for an awesome team. We've got Olympians and Paralympians, Iron Cowboy.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
good.
it's gonna be fun. So I'm gonna crew for those guys. I'm not gonna ride, but I hear that crewing is just as hard as actually being out there and riding. Lack of sleep and just the demands. So I'm pumped. Those are gonna be my two mental challenges next year.
Yeah, right. That's so it's funny, the Iron Cowboy, I watched his stuff. Tyler told me about him on I think
Yep.
22nd, and I bought it's on I think I can only find it on YouTube, and I bought it on YouTube and I watched it, and like that, if you see him, tell him I said thank you, because he changed my perspective and like in a way changed my life. And just like he said something, he said, if I can't run, I'll walk. If I can't walk, I'll crawl. If I can't crawl, I'll cartwheel. And I took that mantra and I was like, absolutely. And I got to I was running,
Yes.
and then I got to the point where I couldn't run anymore. So I was like, I'll walk. And it was just that mentality of, I don't care what happens. And I told people before I used to watch that, I told people that if I got hurt, which I knew I was going to get hurt, there was no way I didn't get hurt in this. Like, I'll go get a scooter from Target, like the Razor scooter, and I will scooter around that circle, or I'll put myself in a wheelchair and wheelchair around, however many, like, it's not about like running, it's about saying I'm going to do something and finishing. So yeah, to answer the other part of your question about what would I tell people about this, I would tell people, what would I tell people? I would tell them, honestly, like it's kind of simple, but just keep showing up. Just keep showing up, because you're not going to want to do it more than you're going to want to do it. And the ability to, yeah, I found that the ability to be successful isn't succeeding on the good days, it's succeeding on the bad days, and figuring out how, when you're having a bad day, how to have a less bad day, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, just, keep showing up and keep walking, even though it hurts. And like, if I could go back and do it again, and I'm actually, there's a lady out in Texas right now who's doing this, and I'm kind of helping her through it.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, I'm just talking to her, and I told her, I was like, if I could go back and do it, I would have walked the first like 2.5 weeks, and just tracked when I was going to the store, getting the miles there, because I wasn't like, I would go out and run, and then I'd do a full day's worth of work, and I was expending a lot of energy in the beginning that I didn't necessarily need to. So be smart with how you get your miles in, because I definitely wasn't. Make sure you have an accurate GPS tracker, because my phone, I use Strava and ASICS Runkeeper, and at times they would just like shut off and they weren't accurate. Yep. And I remember on day 28, so a lady gave me this Garmin watch, and on day 28, my Garmin watch said I was at 28 miles. So I stopped and I looked at my phone, and my phone said I had 6 more miles to go to get to 20. I was just like, are you kidding me? I've been getting sandbagged this entire month. So that's why I say I'm at like 550 plus.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's and then the other piece of advice would be to prepare your nutrition, because probably nutrition was my worst thing. I ran out of food the last week and a half into it. And I survived I had 2 loaves of bread and a jar of peanut butter. I ran out of jelly, and I literally survived off of peanut butter sandwiches and food that people brought me. So, and like one day I had a bottle of giant like container of like protein. And I remember there was one day I was so tired when I got home that I put like 6 scoops of protein in my shaker, and then had like 3 peanut butter sandwiches. And I like forgot to eat carbs. Like, aside from the bread, like I had spaghetti I could have made and just like ate the noodles, but I forgot to eat carbs. And then that next day I crashed so hard because I didn't have carbs. And so prep your nutrition. Definitely, that would help. Don't survive off of peanut butter sandwiches like I did. But yeah, it's a gnarly task, but focus on. I'll leave you. I think we're wrapping up here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'll leave you with this. So when I was on the track, I knew that I couldn't like run everything straight. So I was like, all right, when I'm on the track, I started out as I'm gonna run the longs, walk the shorts. And then when I got too tired for that, it was, all right, let's run the shorts, walk the longs. And then when my body disintegrated from that, it was, all right, let's run the light poles. And then when my body disintegrated from that, it was, all right, on the sidewalk, let's get from this crack to this crack, and this crack to this crack, and this crack to that crack. And as crazy as that sounds, like there were so many times where I just had my head down and I was looking, all right, I got to get from this crack to that crack, this crack to the next crack, to the next crack, to the next crack in the sidewalk. And just, you have to focus on what's right in front of you. You can't sit there and think, oh my God, I still have 470 miles to do this month. I still have 22 to do today. Because if you do that, you will spiral yourself out, and there's zero chance that you'll be in a good mental space. And so you just literally have to focus on, what do I have to do right now to get me to my goal? My goal right now is to get 15 miles this morning. And I'm going to do that by getting from this crack in the sidewalk to the next crack to the next crack. And pretty soon, all those cracks will add up to the 15 miles. And I think that was a big part of the reason why I was successful.
Yes. I think that is life advice, that is athlete advice. We didn't dive into it, guys, but there is such a correlation between when you physically demand stuff out of your body that your mentality grows. And I think for me, it was learning how to truly gauge failure. So what is the minimum level to be successful? For us, it was completing one additional mile every single day. It didn't matter how fast it got done, where it got done, any of that stuff. It's just that it got done in that 24-hour time frame. And I think with every task, you need to ask yourself, what is the minimum to be successful here? How can I go a little bit farther, push myself, but continuing to always gauge success and failure rather than on a yes or a no, on a continuum. And learning how to do that will provide you a lot of grace in your life. That was huge for me. Also, checking the box, are you worthy enough to yourself to uphold the promises that you make? Because if you're not worthy enough to yourself, your word will be no good for anyone else either. So making sure that you continue to push that. Rob, I love that we got to do the calendar challenge together. I love that we are forever bonded as the crazy people that did the third calendar challenge on a month with 31 days.
31. No one else has done that, like, which is pretty cool. Like even O'Brady, he did like a day of like the month of 30 days. And that's something I hold on to, is like, yeah, like, you make, like, give me the hardest, like we took the hardest thing and was like, how can we make it just a little bit harder? Like 30 days, screw it. Let's do 31.
I love it. Well, I know that we both went on the journey from couch to 5 consecutive days of ultra marathons, and I think we both learned a lot. I can't wait to see. I hope that we'll get to do 29-0-29 together soon, and lots of other tasks. Mobility athletes, go follow Rob, follow Tyler Pazik. I know that you guys will glean so much from their journeys, and just remember that it doesn't have to be something sports specific. You can follow Rob and learn all about the world of volleyball, but it's going to transition to whatever it is that you're doing in your life. If you can just see past this, like logistics of it, and really see what mental gains are being made. Thank you, Rob, for everything you've done, and we will catch up soon.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.